Howdy everyone. I am now working on the hole locations for the inside radius of this framing, and a couple of things I want to make note of. The instructions don't give you any real guidance as far as edge distance from the ends of these pieces to the first hole. The instructions do show from this end, which would be the bottom end. This is obviously upside down. This bottom end to the first hole location on the inside and on the outside. That dimension is given to you, and then they say that you have a maximum of 1.5 inch spacing after that for each hole. But they don't give you guidance on this end of edge distance. So all I did, they say from this edge to the hole is typical 1/4 inch, which makes sense because it's an 1/8 inch hole basically. So 2 diameter is 1/4. In the past, they have dictated even for an 1/8 inch hole that you want a 5/16 distance from some edges. So I went ahead and did 5/16 from this edge here to this hole, 5/16 from this edge to this hole. And I also did 5/16 from this edge to the center. Just my choice, my personal choice. So anyway, all I had done for both this side and the holes that are on this side, after I measured off this distance here as given on the plans, I just went ahead and did 1.5 inches all the way down, and it worked out pretty well because from here to here is 1.5 inches, and then here's my 5/16 from this edge mark. And I didn't measure this, but you can look and see that it's pretty evenly spaced. The holes on the other side, they're a little bit different. If you can imagine this being this other side here, just as an example, I had measured over 5/16 and put my mark. And I had measured down from the outer edge here as shown on the plans, this dimension, and then I just went 1.5 inches. But by the time I got back to this end, this hole and this hole were a little bit closer together. And you can definitely tell because you've got a nice 1.5 inch spacing, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, and then this, between this last hole and this hole, they're a little bit closer. But I don't care. It was just easier to measure that way, and I just went with it because it was simple. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and mark my center line for each of these holes, and then just like I did on this side here, after I get them all marked, I'll center punch them, and then it will be the same routine over at the drill press again, just drilling these through. Now these holes on this bottom radius, this inner radius, these do not get countersunk. These get domed head rivets. So once the holes are drilled to the proper size and deburred, that's it. All right, so let me do that. Howdy everyone. Alrighty, so now I have the frame assembly half back on my bench. You can see I've got the blue bar still in place as my straight edge. It is clamped to the bench. I've got the frame itself, the flat part, so this is the top of the frame. The flat part of the frame I have clamped to my straight edge. And again, like I had said before, the top of this is flat. And when you have your two halves together with just this plate, they can tend to move a little bit. And you don't want this flat part to be humped. So you don't want that end and this end coming together, which would make this top part kind of curve this way. And then of course, if this end was pushed out and this end was pushed out, that would make this top part kind of sink a little bit. So in order to make sure that this is nice and straight, I've got it clamped to my bar. with it clamped to the bar, it just so happens that it lays nice and tight all the way around to my workbench on both sides. So it is nice and flat on the bench going across, and it is nice and flat right here where it's clamped. So now that that's set up, you can see I've got my strap clamped in place. I measured the strap and I've marked a center line on the strap itself. And that center line, don't know if you can see that, the center line is right here. And it lines up with the seam between these two pieces. What I had also done, you can see I've got a little piece of wood here and a hammer. I would just put the wood on here and tap it down at different locations just to make sure that this strap is nested in the radius of this piece. So the strap is nested in the radius of this piece nice and tight, but yet it is still pulled with the clamps. It is still pulled tight this way. Against this piece here. So this is tight, the clamps are pulling it tight against here. And I would tap it with the hammer just to make sure that it's down all the way so that it nests in the radius of the curve in here. Now these little plastic clamps, they don't have enough tension, they don't have enough strength to pull this tight. These are just to hold it in place. They're really not doing any kind of an alignment. The only alignment that I've got going on right now are with these two. So with hammering this down and pulling it tight, I'm very confident that this is in the right location through here. With this being in the right location, I went ahead, used my long drill bit, and I came in this way through my pre-drilled holes and made my marks onto the strap piece. Now again, these clamps are the only two that I trust. So the only holes that I've marked at this point were the ones that are really, really close to these clamps. I only did 4. I did 1 hole, 2, 3, 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the only 4 that I have marked. So now I'm going to drill those. I'm going to take this apart. I'm going to take the strap out. I'm going to center punch those 4 holes. Take the strap to the drill press, drill those to size, come back. I'm going to cleco those 4 in place. And then I'll move these clamps to the next segment and I'll mark a few more holes. Again, I'll clamp it. I'll hit it flat, or I'll hit it down with my wood and my hammer to make sure it nests correctly. The clamps will pull it tight this way so that there's no gap between this flange and the strap itself. And I'll continue that process on around. Now I've measured with this in place as is. I've measured the height. And I get just about, I don't know if that's going to show either, but it's about about 5/30 seconds, not quite an eighth. A little too low, which is what you want because you have to fit these other halves on here. Howdy everyone. Alrighty, so I have this inner strap, the inside strap here, in place and completely drilled. It's completely clecoed all the way around. And now I am starting to do this outside strap here. And it's done the exact same way. The only difference is this. You'll note that I don't have my blue bar across here anymore. And that's because, one, if I had it across here, I couldn't get to these holes to match drill them. And at this point I don't feel it's necessary because I've got this plate here, this center plate here is riveted in place, holding these two halves together. And now I've got this entire strap clecoed which is also holding the two halves together. So all I did was clamp the part flat to the table. So I have a clamp at that end, and I have a clamp here, this big C-clamp. And that's just to make sure that the part is held flat against the bench top. With that done, now I do the same procedure. I fit my strap in place. I've got a center line drawn on the strap, and that mates with the center line of the two halves where they come together. So that is centered. And then I just make sure that the strap is nested nicely against the inside radius of this flange on the inside, and that it's clamped tight this way against the flange. So again, it's clamped against the flange and it's pushed down so that it's nested on this inside radius. Now you don't want to hammer it down too much because it will try to ride that radius and stick out. Once you're happy with that, again, a little at a time, you just come in with your drill bit. Spin it a few times to make an indication on the strap. Take the strap completely out, center punch those marks, drill it, bring it back, cleco those holes, reclamp another section of holes, mark them with the drill bit, take it off, center punch, drill, come back. Now you can cleco all of those, do another segment, clamp it, make sure it's nested, drill it. You get the idea. So that's what I'm doing now. And once I get this strap complete, I would imagine I start fitting the other two halves that will sit on top. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right, talk to you later.